Okay, I think that this setup is working. I apologise for my voice, I've got a little bit of a cold coming on. This isn't the Doctor Who review today, I'm going to make that tomorrow because this is much more important, and I want to make sure that I'm putting up at least once a week an update on this situation for anyone who maybe isn't as online as some of us are. So the Gaza situation, I'm going to keep talking about it until we get that ceasefire and the Palestinians have their rights, essentially. But the ceasefire, well, it wasn't a ceasefire anyway, so there was a truce period. So there was during, I don't know how to say this, like, I'm not the most articulate, I'm very emotional, but during what was supposedly a ceasefire, the IDF killed a 15-year-old and 8-year-old boy. They shot an 8-year-old boy during the ceasefire. And during this, I say ceasefire, it was like a truce kind of thing. And during that time, the people in Palestine were still, they didn't have food, they didn't have water, they didn't have medical supplies. So they were using that time, and again, like, this is the disparity here. People in Israel at that time were pretty much able to resume their lives. Like, we're seeing videos of, like, screenings of the new Beyonce concert, all those kind of things. You know, like a siren will go off and people will be told to go to the shelters or something, but it's not a lot of carnage. That's not me saying that's all right. Like, of course it's not all right. Like, don't fire rockets at innocent people. Like, don't do it. But that was what it was for them during the truce. Now, during the truce for Palestine, people were using that time to try and get their families out of the rubble. There still wasn't medical aid, right? So bear in mind, there are so many families there are so many children, and anyone who denies that at this point, I don't know what to even say anymore. So it was a few nights where the children could go to sleep knowing that they weren't going to get bombed that night. But they also had to be told that, I'm sorry, but, like, you know, how do you as a parent explain to that child that the bombing is going to start again? Right? And how do you, and these children are hungry, these children don't have shelter, right? They've already lost their homes, they're, like, a lot of them are injured, so the numbers we're getting about the people who've died, which is horrific and massive, but it's so much bigger than that because it's injury, right? So loads and loads of children have had limbs amputated, or they've lost their sight or something, you know, and that's just to speak of, like, the physical signs we can see in terms of injury, the psychological injury that's happening to all those children. You know, think about it like this. If it was, you know, I personally, I love children so much. I think children are wonderful. And imagine, like, a class of kids at school here and how it impacts them if something terrible happens to one person in their class. So say somebody gets, you know, hit by a car or something, one of the children gets hit by a car, and there's no malice involved in that, it's an accident. But think about how we deal with the children in that situation and how that's very distressing for those children, right? Just that in itself gives the kids nightmares, and they need a lot of comfort because they're just little children. Now imagine that the same set of kids of the same age are seeing their friends die horribly, right? There's a video I'm going to link for you. It's actually by The Guardian, and to be honest, I've been really, really frustrated with The Guardian recently. I just don't think they are pulling their weight at all where they need to. But there's this video, and I was watching it earlier, and it's very, very upsetting. And it's basically a short, like, 9-minute video of what's going on in Gaza through the eyes of, I think it's a 7-year-old girl. And it follows her and her life. So this truce period was not... Understand that for the Palestinians in that time, the only thing that changed is that they weren't being bombed. Now, there were still settler attacks. They were still... They've been told that when hostages were being released, because obviously we've got Hamas exchanging hostages and we've got Israel exchanging their hostages from the prisons. Now, when the Israelis came back, you know, I saw on the news, you know, there's people, the families of those victims, all the people that are coming back, thankfully, like, out on the streets, like, playing music, praying, like, rejoicing about the fact that their families are coming back. Which is a good thing, right? When your family member who's been taken is coming back, like, that's just human joy. Now, the Palestinians were told they weren't allowed to do that. Like, literally, they were told, like, their joy at having family members back for that brief moment was criminalised. Like, can people not understand what's happening here? Like, the disparity between the two sides of this conflict. Now, some of the people in Palestine during the truce, they tried to basically go back to their homes or to check on their homes, because bear in mind, these are people who've moved from the north. And I feel like we've gone so far with this situation now, but it's got so far because not enough people have stood up. They're too afraid of... I think, honestly, they're being afraid of being called anti-Semitic, which is absolutely pathetic, because the moment you go along with the idea that to be against Israel and the actions of Israel is anti-Jewish is the moment you yourself is being anti-Semitic, because you are then attaching Judaism and Jewish people to the actions of a state which is committing terrible crimes. And that's not helpful, and in itself is anti-Semitic. But do you remember when, you know, they first said, oh, Israel said, people have to move because we've made this like a military zone, we're going to move you from the north to the south where it'll be safe, right? And they played that as if, oh, you know, they're the most moral army in the world, and, you know, thank goodness for them for letting people know. And I'll say it again because people don't seem to have their brains switched on. They don't seem to see Palestinians as human beings like us, right? If somebody, like, say Putin, let's just say Putin because, you know, he's like a big person around, like, right now that we're talking about in the news. If Putin said that he was going to bomb your house, right, he decided he was going to bomb your house and he was letting you know in advance that you had to go. I'm in Kent. Let's just say, right, you have got like a day, you've got to get to Manchester. By the way, the roads are rubble and we will be shooting at you on the way there. And you don't have enough food, you might have disabled family members, doesn't matter. You've got to get there because we're so moral. Would you be like thanking Putin for that? Would you be like, oh, thank you for letting us know that our house is going to be completely bombed and we've got no way of getting all our stuff out of it. We've got young children, we've got elderly people who can't go, we've got people in the hospitals. Like, imagine that here. And not enough people are imagining the Palestinian experience as happening to human beings. And again, like, I'm sorry if I don't mean to articulate this wrongly. This is not to invalidate the suffering of the innocent Israeli people, right? So the hostages, people at the music festival. But what I'm saying is the media does see those people as human beings, right? As they should. But when it comes to the Palestinians, people's empathy is turned completely off, right? Suddenly it becomes, that's collateral, that's just a tragedy of war, that's just the way it is. And it is racism because people see the Palestinians as Muslim, foreign, dangerous, that kind of thing. They don't extend the same empathy. So Israel was like, oh, you know, we're being so generous, we're dropping leaflets to say, leave your homes, you've got to go. So imagine we had to do that. Like, how would we feel? Would we be, like, grateful? And if we asked other countries for help and they just said, well, Putin did let you know, I don't know why you're complaining because he could have just done it, but instead he's telling you he's going to bomb your house and he gave you 24 hours to leave. How would we feel? But it's even worse than that, because now the people have been forced to move to the south. Now, lots of people died because they couldn't move from the north. And again, Israel had no right to ask them in the first place. I feel like we've gone so far in this situation that, like, every single time it just moves because people don't stand up, everyone's afraid of standing up. Israel had no right to tell those people to move. Collective punishment is a war crime under international law. Innocent people had no, like, they have no right to make those innocent people go anywhere or to destroy their homes. Like, it's ridiculous. And to say, oh, Israel has a right to defend itself, that is not defending itself. And also, like, in terms of people keep saying, oh, Israel has the right to defend itself, against what? In what context? Like, those words get thrown around all the time. And it's like, how can you possibly justify that? It's like people say the words and it's like the emperor's new clothes. And everyone's like, yes, of course they have the right to defend themselves. And it's like, what does that look like, though? What does that actually look like? What do you mean by that? And again, it's like in abuse dynamics, they are actively the attackers, right? They are attacking ordinary people. And it's reframed, everyone's like, well, they have to defend themselves. And I feel like everyone's gone mad because that is not defense, is it? That is not defending yourself. That is being the active person that is hurting people, and you're hurting innocent people. So they had to move to the south, and a lot of people did go to the south. And it was a terrible thing to even have to think about because, again, like, everyone's like, oh, it's okay, they just had to move to the south. Imagine if that was you. Now, bear in mind, when they were going to the south, some people were shot on the roads, some people were killed. So, and again, like, people were dropping dead of exhaustion, right? Because they were having to walk there. As they would get to like a certain point in their cars, the IDF was saying, you're not going any further with your car, you're going to have to carry things. So again, all the belongings in your life, like, I don't know, your wedding albums and your kids' favourite toys, like all those things that would be special to you, imagine you had to suddenly pack up. Like, in the room you're in now, like the life you're in now, you know, and we're very privileged in the life we're in now, I imagine, when you're watching this. Imagine having to think, I can only take what I can carry here. And I don't know, like, having to make those decisions and to know that you're probably not going to go back to your home. You know, it's not just, oh, we're off out. And again, that wouldn't be all right. Imagine if Putin was like, everyone go, everyone in Kent, everyone in London move. In the end, you'll get to go back, but we're bombing the place to bits. Like, so that's your home gone, having to carry that stuff with you. All the while, it's incredibly dangerous. And again, also, the decision was, at the start, people were saying, if we go, we know they're going to take our homes. We're not going to go back, because that's what happened in the Nakba in 1948. So some people decided to stay. It was a choice of, we go and we have absolutely nothing, or we stay and we just hope that we're lucky and we don't get killed, and we keep our home and we keep our things and we stay together as a family. But now they've been sent to the south, which was illegal to ask them to do anyway and totally wrong. They are now bombing the south. Israel is now bombing the south. So these are people who've been displaced, a lot of families displaced in the Nakba, displaced again and again, and now they are dying in the places of safety. So look how this thing has moved. Because people don't stand up at the start, people don't actually have the guts to say, that is wrong and ridiculous, what are you doing? So now these people are being killed outside of hospitals, like in refugee camps. Holy buildings are being destroyed. And again, let's go back to weeks ago. I got a load of stick because there was the rocket and people were saying, oh, it must have been a stray Hamas rocket which hit that hospital. Now Israel is openly laying siege to hospitals, right? And the patients in there, horrific stories coming out about the lack of supplies and the lack of fuel and what that's putting the patients through in those hospitals. I saw a story in the past few days about babies that have been left in the hospital, and when people went back into the hospital after those few days, the babies were dead. They were just left there, right? This is a crime against humanity committed by Israel. So they're telling people to go to the south, but the south isn't safe. It's not go there and you won't die. It's like they move it. It's obvious what they were going to do. They're thinning out the population of Gaza. And there's a lot of quotes that I could read to you. I won't, because I haven't got them with me right now, but I will. Listen to what the IDF officials, the Israeli politicians, are actually saying, the people with power. They are openly telling you their intent. So these people, again, and that truce situation, that is what people were going through. So people who tried to go back to their houses were shot at, right? It's just, understand that truce in itself was not a truce, because people in Israel were able to get on with their lives mostly, and the people in Palestine were still living under siege conditions. There wasn't enough time to get the aid in. And all these politicians saying, oh, the answer is to get aid in. What a ridiculous thing to say. That is not the answer. Of course, it's a helpful thing to do. That's not the answer. Imagine if in, the Holocaust, for example, in the Second World War, the solution from people have been, right, well, let's pause it for a moment and let's make sure we get food in because we don't want people to be malnourished. Let's pause it for a week or so. Do you understand how ludicrous that sounds? And how we wouldn't accept that for ourselves, but all our leaders are accepting that for the Palestinians for some reason, because the Palestinians to them are less human. So then the truce ended. And all these politicians, I'm so sick of them, right? So a ceasefire is a basic thing to ask for. I've spoken about that loads on this channel. It is what we need. If we don't want people to die, anyone to die, the ceasefire is the way forward, right? It's obvious. But our politicians, and I'll speak about, Keir Starmer, for example, because I'm ex-Labour, basically, and the opposition I expect more from. He was all along, he actually made it so people in the party lost their jobs or had to resign, because he told them if they voted for a ceasefire, that was it. Right, they'd lose their job from the front bench. They had Labour-backed humanitarian pauses, was his position, because without a ceasefire, he said Israel couldn't get rid of Hamas properly. So this is what he pushed his party to do. It was shameful. A ceasefire is so basic. It should be so inoffensive. It should literally just be for humanity. Let us work towards a lasting ceasefire so people don't die. Right? First step, easy. But he wouldn't let people in the party do that. And again, I'm just disgusted with Labour in general. Thankfully, some people did disobey him, but still, he should not be the leader. It's absolutely disgusting behaviour. Right, so then this truce ends, this humanitarian pause, and what's humanitarian about it? And Keir Starmer puts out a statement that he's disappointed that there isn't an end to the cessation of hostilities, because you can't say the word ceasefire. And again, what do these people think? These are the people these are the people in charge, right? They're masquerading as these reasonable people. And all they've backed, I'm sorry to be like this, but they are so stupid that they backed a humanitarian pause. What is a pause? It's very, very basic. What happens, what's the difference between a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, and a pause? Obviously, a pause means you stop for a moment, you pause for a bit, and then it resumes. And that is what they backed. And then it starts resuming, and it's awful, isn't it? Terrible for the people of Gaza. And again, they're cowards, because I think they've seen that the majority of the people in this country now are aware of what's going on and are thinking, wait a minute, that's disgusting. And they're trying to cover their backs. But that's if that's what your answer is, right? Oh, let's have a humanitarian pause, get some aid in. Then all you're really saying is we pause it for a little while, and again, it doesn't save the people in Gaza who are dying from other things like illness. They're getting sick, they're getting weak, and just imagine, like, I feel weird even having to talk about this here, because people are so cut off from their empathy when it comes to Palestinians. Think about how we feel if we don't eat for a few days. Right? And then imagine going through that trauma and maybe being injured and not having painkillers and being worried about your family. It's a hell. It's like an endless hell. And having to tell your children who are terrified of the bombs that yes, it's stopped, but it might start again. And there are these horrific stories about, Palestinian parents having to say to their children, yes, we might die, but at least we'll be together. They can't even reassure their children that they won't die. They can't reassure their children that they won't be in pain. Right? All they can say to them is, don't worry, we'll be together. There's footage from inside the hospitals. The hospital system has collapsed in Gaza. People are being treated on the floor. Children are being treated on the floor, and they're dying. Children are dying in great pain. And that's not even the beginning of their pain. It didn't start when they were injured. It was the terror before that. And this idea of, like, the pause, what on earth is the point of a pause? And I'll use the example again. Imagine if during the Holocaust, the answer had been, let's have a pause. All right, let's have a pause, shall we? And then, maybe we can get some food in, and at least it will give people like a week of like able to chill out. Well, no, because people would still be in the camps, wouldn't they? People would still be suffering. There wasn't even enough aid that was able to come in. Israel is openly committing genocide right now. Like, openly. Like, it's ethnic cleansing. I know there's arguments about, is it genocide? Is it not? Okay, let's just say it's definitely committing war crimes and ethnic cleansing. Let's go for that, right? Because that's for certain. We know that's what's happening here. And this is happening in real time, right? And if you've ever asked yourself, how do these bad things happen? What were people doing? Right now, this is what people were doing, and this is what people were saying, and this is who's ignoring it, right? Who's talking about it? Who is trying to both sides the issue? And every second, like every minute, the Palestinians are dying. And it's going to become easier and easier for Israel, because they're going to start dying of, starvation. All these different illnesses, like people who would usually be able to go to a hospital for something else, they aren't able to be treated. People are drinking dirty water, they're getting really sick. A lot of the population is children, so they're quite weak, and a lot of elderly people as well. And now the new thing seems to be that when this awful stuff about children comes up, it's hard to deny now, because it's so obvious. The new line is, well, yeah, that's sad, that's a consequence of war, and that's why Hamas must surrender. That logic is pathetic coming from adults. Those children, first of all, have nothing to do with Hamas. Children are not bargaining chips, right? They're not bargaining tools, and they're not collateral. It's not, if only this adult would do this, then the child wouldn't be in pain. How horrible. All children are innocent. All children are children of light, no matter where they are in the world. They are not there to be this sad collateral. And it's disgusting, because it would not happen if it was in this country, right? And it was British children that this was happening to. Do you think it would be like, that's just sad collateral? Of course not. Like, you killing innocent people to put pressure on, to get your political aims, right? It's terrorism, isn't it? People are openly saying, yes, it's sad, but if only Hamas did this, if only Hamas did that, then these children wouldn't be dying. No, absolutely not. It's ridiculous logic. Children are innocent. There is no excuse. It's not Hamas that are bombing these children, is it? It's not. Israel is making a choice. They are making a choice to do what they are doing to those children. And they do not care. It's obvious. Like, they keep telling us. They don't care. Right, another thing I just wanted to say here, before I end this, is, this ridiculous new actually, there's two things we need to talk about here. So the first one is the anti-Semitism issue, right? People are now trying to say that to be anti-Zionist is to be anti-Semitic. How absolutely ridiculous. How pathetic, right? People saying that, if you're anti-Zionist, if you believe now in the rights of the Palestinians, that they're being occupied and oppressed and they deserve their human rights, and that makes you anti-Semitic, right? No, it shouldn't be that someone having their basic human rights. It's not a scale here. right? They're trying to make us think that it's this, oh, it's got to be one or the other, take your pick. And I know why they're trying to do it like that, because they think most people are, you know, they are more racist and will go, oh, the one more like us, the ones we're told are more Western, not those Muslim terrorist people. But it's not like that. You know, people having their human rights is not either or. And people are just accepting that framing. I feel like I'm going mad. Like, no. And if the freedom of the Palestinian people and their human rights is a threat to Israel, then that's got to be making some questions, right? People have got to have some questions about that, because why should that be? Someone having their human rights shouldn't be a danger to you. And if it is, then what is your power and what is your state and what are you doing? It shouldn't be like that. And also, there's been a resurgence of talking about the October 7th attacks, for example, and there's been some strange press screenings which the IDF are putting together and trying to get journalists together, and they're packaging it as if to say, this is why, these horrendous things are why we have to do what we're doing in Gaza. And also they're talking about, you know, sexual violence, and I don't know the facts about October the 7th. I wish we had more facts, and I'm not saying, oh, we need to see the horrible footage of people being terrified or anything like that. Of course not. That's something that's intensely private for the families, or, you know, and it should be done through the proper channels, like confidentially. But first of all, we need full information on that, because Israel is actually using the death of those people, right, and what happened to further their aims in ethnic cleansing, right? They're making it an excuse to do what they're doing to Gaza, which to me, I feel like everything's topsy-turvy, because what a disgusting way to treat the memories of those people. Like they are using the death of those people to excuse killing more innocent people. As if people are going to see awful terrors happen to innocent people and they're going to go, oh, okay, then that's why we have to do awful things to other innocent people and other innocent kids. Like, it doesn't make sense. You know, they're talking about, you know, sexual violence and things like that. And again, I don't know the details of what's happened, really. And I think we should get the full details. But again, honestly, like, people need to use their brains. It doesn't matter, like, what awful things were done on October the 7th, in the not that it doesn't matter, like, humanity-wise, but in terms of, does that make it okay to collectively punish these people and these innocent children? The answer is no. Obviously. You know, you could tell me the most wicked, evil thing imaginable had happened, and I'm not going to say, okay, then, well, let's bomb children. That's just not how it works. And it's being used like that. As if to say, don't bomb innocent people, don't collectively punish, is now in some way supportive of whatever awful things happened. And people will say, oh, you're being dismissive, you're saying whatever horrible things happened. Because we don't know exactly what's gone on. And people will say, you know, oh, so what do you propose then? As if the only option is to just blanket, like carpet bomb the place and kill the people you're occupying and kill these children. Well, obviously, find out what happened, find out who did it, right? And bring those people to justice. Like, it's not, this is why we have to completely demolish the area. It's obviously being used, this attack, right? This awful thing that happened is now being used to further the aims of ethnic cleansing and to hurt innocent people. The answer to innocent people dying is never killing more innocent people. Right? I feel like I'm going mad. People who present themselves as so, like, reasonable are acting like that makes some sort of sense. It's not an exchange. It's not innocent lives for innocent lives. And we wouldn't accept it for us. Right? We wouldn't. Be honest, we wouldn't. People will say it's not racism, but it truly is, because it's the dehumanization. Right? People will see those awful images of the children and they are unable to think that could be their child, right? They think, oh, that's the Middle East, that's over there, that's dangerous people, I guess it's Hamas. Like, it's easy for them to grab onto those things because that's what they want. Like, in the back of their mind, it makes them feel uncomfortable. I do believe that. I think they're starting to think, things are a bit odd. But they're afraid of it. They're afraid of understanding that and looking more deeply into the situation. Because, again, we've got, like, this McCarthyism thing, where if you speak against Israel, you speak about Zionism and Netanyahu and his worldview and that whole situation, then it's like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. Like, people just need to be, I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore about this situation, but I'm going to keep talking about it. Like, hopefully, like, a video in a week, we can try and talk about some stuff that's going on. But we need to keep, like, please keep the space open. Like, I know that, you know, we've got Christmas and stuff coming up. And again, like, I'm a Christian myself. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, right? He was a refugee. So if you think about it, Jesus was a Palestinian refugee and he was Jewish. Jewish Palestinian refugee. Bethlehem. Bethlehem is being attacked. right? I would, Christians are letting me down because they're not thinking, it shouldn't, again, it shouldn't be, oh, this person's like Jesus, therefore they have more value. But quite literally, the story that we're all like celebrating and we're thinking about is the story of a refugee child who, if they were born today, would be born in Palestine, right? And who would be Jewish. But people just carrying on like normal. I just don't understand. But again, please attend your local marches if you can, and the national ones. Like we need to keep pushing for this. And if we feel tired and exhausted and upset and like devastated by what we're seeing, which is understandable, the people in Palestine like don't have the option to think, right, I'm going to turn off my phone and I'm going to like do something else, because it's their daily, it's their lives. They can't turn away from it. So we owe it to them that, you know, in this privileged position that we're in, where we're not in any immediate danger, like, we need to make sure that we keep talking about this, and we just make sure that our politicians know what we want and we support, and that we want peace, right? We want that. And just don't buy into the rubbish that you've got to pick, like, oh, either you're pro-Palestinian or you're anti-Semitic. That very notion is pathetic and it's propaganda, right? It's ridiculous. There is absolutely no reason. They're trying to make it radical and to scoff at the idea of permanent peace and no more innocent people dying is somehow like this radical, dangerous thing. And it's devastating to see that happen in real time. But again, you know, thank you for watching this. I'll make a Doctor Who review tomorrow, I think. And then we've got Dan on the channel soon to do like a big Doctor Who extravaganza video, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, medical aid for Palestinians, the Gaza Oxfam appeal. If I find anything else, I will let you know. But we need to keep this pressure up because, you know, it's hard for us to even imagine. But I do think, you know, if we were in that situation, I hope it would mean the world to us, even if we felt like so lost and so like panicked and so like, who's helping us? Like, to know that people in other places are standing up. And again, like, in some ways, like, of course that's what we should do because it's the right thing, but also if they can do that to them, you know, if our politicians can excuse it when it comes to certain people, it can happen to you, right? And again, that's a kind of selfish thing about solidarity, but it's true. You know, if you protect innocent people and you stand up, even if it makes you a bit scared to do so, then you know, you give people power to do that, that if anything happens to you that's unjust, then hopefully there'll be people all over who'll be able to do the same for you, right? It helps us all. You know, it shouldn't be controversial that people should have their human rights and that the Palestinians should have their freedom and their human rights. Like, it's not controversial and I won't let it be. Thank you for watching. I love you and I will see you really, really soon. All right, love you. Bye.